everybody. It's Jessica Stone at Stansberry Research, and I'm joined by Brian Tycangco from the Philippines. He's the senior analyst at True Wealth Opportunities China. And Brian, we've been talking about Apple's latest news that it's not going to be releasing its brand new iPhone on time, that it's pushing back that release. Is that because of the coronavirus?
Yeah, it is because of the coronavirus, but not because of a supply side problem, but more of a demand side issue. Apple is really facing a lot of uncertainties with regards to demand in its home market, North America. That accounts for about 40% of sales. And we don't know how long these lockdowns are going to last. We don't know how core unemployment is going to be going up and how low the economy is going to go. Pushing back the release of these iPhones scheduled usually for September, pushing back the production is an indication that Apple is unsure of how strong the demand is going to be later this year.
What do we think this is going to mean to the bottom line? Because the iPhone makes up 50% of Apple's annual revenues.
That's going to be a very big impact for Apple if they have to push back production a couple of months, even 1 month. So if they miss the Christmas buying season, and if they miss that post-September launch buying spree, it's going to be a big hit towards the rest of the year because you won't get that sort of sentiment in the following quarters.
So another question for you. I'm wondering how this impacts iPhone's competitors. Are we going to see potentially similar moves from companies like Samsung, for example?
Most of Samsung phones are now made in Vietnam, and Vietnam is still under strict lockdown. They now produce most of their phones outside of China, and China is the one that's now getting back online. So they're wondering, how are we going to get all these phones back to our markets, right? So it really depends on the company. You're going to see a lot of other companies like Chinese manufacturers benefit now that manufacturing is back up in China, and their biggest market is actually China. So I don't see a breakdown in terms of the supply chain with regards to China itself and maybe most of first world Asia. I'm more worried about, the pace of opening of the markets outside of China, especially for multinational companies like Apple. So even though China recovers, how fast will the other markets recover for Apple? How soon can demand pick up that they can now serve these markets from their supply bases in Asia or in China? That's I think what investors need to look at. As well as 5G. I think most of the new iPhone models are going to be 5G enabled, but then how fast is 5G going to pick up in the rest of the world? In China, it's picking up dramatically. They had something like 10 million subscribers at the end of 2019. By the end of the first quarter of 2020, they had close to 50 million. So that's sort of like a five-fold increase. And by the end of this year, they're projected to have 200 million 5G subscribers. And you're going to have this whole upgrade cycle going on in China right now. And whoever's going to be benefiting from that, I think we need to take a look at.
So I wonder if you're going to see a trend too in investors looking at, looking more closely at the supply chains for these big technology providers and saying, hey, if there's a mass disruption, you've got to be able to adjust in order to get me to invest.
Right. So companies that have a plan to actually produce most of their raw materials or their components within their markets or in each particular market are going to be given a premium compared to those who are more exposed to the global supply chain. In case like a company like Xiaomi, for instance, Chinese company, it manufactures most of its phones for the Indian market within India right now.
Okay.
So they're not disrupted. Samsung as well, and now even Apple is trying to manufacture most of its lower end models within India. Not only does this save them a lot of in terms of taxes, but it now allows them to get insulated from this whole supply chain disruption because of the coronavirus. Apple actually just before the lockdown increased their orders by 10%, and they released the iPhone SE. It's a $399 smartphone, the lowest priced smartphone from Apple so far. Now, that tells us that they have confidence in the supply chain because they're going to see huge orders for this smartphone They wouldn't do that if they weren't confident that they could supply these smartphones to the market.
Thanks so much, Brian Tycangco, joining us all the way from the Philippines with a lot of great information on some things we need to consider when we're investing, not just in Apple, but in technology more broadly. And if you would like to see much more content just like this, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel down below, or you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for joining us.